Hey everybody, welcome to our next episode in Mike and Leah's Model Railroading. And in this episode, I'm going to show you how I built the second layer here out of 2x4s and thick plywood. And here again, I need to be able to walk on it. And we also built our first overhead tramway using 072 curves so that we can run O-scale trains. So let's get started.
The vertical supports for the framing are 13 inches high, and they're all 2x4s except for a few areas where I use some 2x6s. I used wood screws to attach everything together, and here I'm starting to work on the horizontal framing on the right side. I cut an access port using a jigsaw, and this was really important because this whole area is going to be covered, and I needed to be able to fix derailments. With about 13 inches of headspace, I can easily come up through this access port and reach all the track that I need to if there's a derailment. Here, I'm adding a little more framing, and I'm using this long blue cutting guide that is normally associated with cutting sheetrock to help set the framing correctly. Wood clamps and a long level are a definite must to make sure that the framing is all level and straight as you work your way across. I forgot to mention in the beginning that I use the masking tape to set the positioning of the 13-inch vertical 2x4s. To secure the 13-inch 2x4s to the base, what I did was I outlined each 2x4, removed it, drilled 2 holes, and then crawled onto the underside and screwed it from the underside up with 2-inch deck screws. To keep the vertical 2x4s from pushing up when I screwed from the underside, Leah got on top of the board and pushed down on each one of these studs. All the horizontal framing is just about complete. These vertical studs won't need any framing attached to them because they're so close together, and once the plywood is laid across the top, they'll be secured with screws from the upside of the plywood. I added some additional vertical studs in order to make the framing very, very strong. All the framing is now complete, and now we're ready to start covering the top with plywood. Each section of plywood was cut to shape, laid down and positioned correctly, clamped into place, and then screwed to the framing. I slowly worked my way across, carefully cutting, shaping, and clamping and screwing the plywood to the frame. And I just have one small section to go, and the upper layer will be complete. With the second layer complete, now it's time to start cutting and shaping the curves and the straightaway sections for the upper railway. I made 072 curve templates from cardboard and then traced them on the 3/4 inch pine planks and then carefully cut them out with a jigsaw. The vertical 2x4s for the overhead railway are also 13 inches in height, and I attached them to the plywood in the same manner that I did with the framing for the second layer. I outlined each vertical stud on the base, drilled 2 holes, and then screwed the stud in place from the underside. Each one of the vertical studs will be sealed and painted a concrete color to replicate a huge concrete pier. I got this idea from driving along I-24 in Tennessee, where I found a huge overhead railway system that had huge concrete piers spanning a very large valley. And here it is. It was really cool. I was originally going to use truss work for the vertical framing, but this was much simpler and easier to do and to replicate. The first few lengths of the curved and straight pine sections have been screwed to the vertical supports, and it looks pretty good. Some of the vertical sections had to have a base attached to them because I couldn't screw them from the underside because of framing issues. Each of these base blocks is about 4.5 inches in length, and the ends were chopped so that it would look more like a concrete pour. I also laid some track sections down just to be sure that the straight lengths and the curved lengths sit correctly on the pine sections. Here you can see how I attach the curved pine sections to the vertical supports. Now I've got the MTH truss bridge, which is 30 inches in length, set in place to check the fit. The bridge set tightly in place between the two piers, but I had to shim the undersides to get it level. The last curved section has been screwed into place, and now it's time to work on some more framing. Yep, we are almost done with the first overhead railway. The last straight section is over 8 feet in length, and this is how I did the framing for it. I like to use screws to pin everything together because it's so much stronger than trying to use nails. I had a spare can of tan paint, so that's what I used to prime the wood. All the horizontal surfaces received 2 coats of flat black paint. All the vertical studs, which replicated concrete piers, received 2 coats of a light tan color. With all the tracks screwed down, the next step was to test it, and I used my brand new Williams O-scale Hudson, and the test went great. My plan is to add 1 or possibly 2 more overhead railways, so stay tuned for more construction tips as we proceed with this massive project.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching, and I hope that our construction video was helpful to you. And again, I used 2x4s because I needed to be able to walk on this. With that, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up. And if you get a chance, visit our website at www.mikeashley.com, where we have a model railroad section, and we have a lot of reference videos and pictures there where we took of trains and specifically steam locomotives as we traveled the country. Have a great evening.